Welcome everybody. How crazy is it, right? It's already Friday. I remember when we just did our AMA. I remember when we just had the quick take on Monday. And I remember when it was the beginning of February, right? Now it's in early March. It's crazy how time flies. And I think we're getting to the end of Q1. All right. So we have some very big, very exciting updates and upgrades happening in March, as all of you are aware at this point, I hope, right? If you're listening to the show, if you're following us, you know that we have Chrysalis coming out. And in addition to that, we have so much more that we have to build, right? As a foundation, as an organization that is distributed across like 23, 25 countries right now, we at the IOTA Foundation, we do not rest, right? We always have a full roadmap and a full pipeline of work ahead of us. This week, we had some interesting updates. I think this week it was all about sort of the adoption around IOTA. And I'll delve quickly into that once I'm with the tab. But before I talk about the adoption cases, I want to talk about some changes to the team. So first of all, welcome Billy or William Sanders. So Billy has been with the foundation, I think since 2018 actually, November 2018. So he's been with us for a long time, and he's an amazing and funny person. He really likes bow ties. And he's been part of the research team since the beginning of when we really started to accelerate all of our work with Cordicide. So he's been instrumental in shaping up the Cordicide solution, and also really helping us shape up as a research organization. I think one thing that's very exciting about the IOTA Foundation over the last 2 years, and I would say since 2018, is really end of 2018, is really that we have evolved as an organization, right? Initially, we kind of were just scrambling around. We were trying to strategize, or we were lacking a strategy to actually really fundamentally think about what the IOTA Foundation should look like and what the purpose of the IOTA Foundation is. And over the last 2-3 years, it just became very apparent that the primary purpose of the IOTA Foundation is R&D, right? Research and development. Because whenever we speak with large companies, with large partners, even though they're very excited about the protocol, I don't think that there's many or entities out there today that can really help develop the protocol itself. And we also kind of saw that with the Eclipse working group, Tango EE, where it's sort of the primary responsibility of the IOTA Foundation to research and engineer the core protocol to enable an entire ecosystem of applications and also products to be built on top, right? And as such, we as the IOTA Foundation, we really have to make sure that we are the leading research organization when it comes to IOTA and when it comes to distributed ledgers in general. And so the last 2 years, we've really built out the team, and I think that's really exciting to see how the team has grown, right? I think now we are close to 130, 35 people in the IOTA Foundation, and I would say around 70% of that is R&D right now. And over the next few weeks, that will only increase. And maybe just to quickly give you guys some insights into Sergey, right? So Sergey, who's really like sort of the main inventor of the Tangle, of the DAG, and who's been leading the entire research team and building it up since the inception. He's less focused on, he wants to be less focused on the administrative tasks that are included with being the director of research, and focus much more on really writing papers, right? And that's really what he's one of the best people at in his entire space. And so it's very exciting that with this switch, Sergey can also focus more on being one of the leading researchers in the IOTA Foundation and to publish, right? That's what he always says. So yeah, welcome Billy to the executive team. Maybe we'll get him onto the show in a few weeks. I think it will be very interesting to speak with him, especially about data sharding, I think, because he's always been leading that effort within the foundation. So he can also explain us, maybe we do like a whiteboard session. I think it would be really fun in these IOTA talks to like experiment with different formats, right? Doing like a whiteboard session on a certain research topic, or doing a whiteboard session on use cases and stuff like that. Like, right? We can experiment and we can think about what we want to do there. By the way, I see that somebody says, by the way, better sound quality would be nice. What's not nice with this headset? Because this is a very expensive microphone, actually. So I think the sound quality should actually be perfect. And the worst thing about Germany is really like the infrastructure, right? Because like it's so terrible to have reliable internet. But that's what we at IOTA are there for, right? Building digital infrastructure. So let's get on to the big stuff. I think one of the most exciting, like not announcements, but one of the most exciting news of this week was really Project Alvarium, the live stream that we did with them, together with Dell and Intel. So Matthew has done a really amazing job presenting IOTA, presenting the value proposition of IOTA, and really like further explaining what the value proposition of Project Alvarium is. And for those of you who are kind of new to the project, the primary goal. Wait, let me try it. Oh no, okay. The primary goal of Project Alvarium is really to give data a confidence score, right? So the big problem that we have today is when you get data from an IoT sensor, it has to go through loops and hops across different gateways, across different infrastructure until it reaches the cloud or until it reaches an algorithm that wants to consume it, right? Now, what we want to do is we want to rely on the data, right? We want to make decisions based on that data. And as such, data itself also becomes this sort of fragile vulnerability in the entire system infrastructure. Because if the data has been tampered with, you can really tamper with the entire execution, right? With the system, with the processes themselves. And as such, you want to be absolutely confident in the data that you get, that it has not been tampered with, that it is immutable, and that you can also verify the source, right, where it comes from. And so Project Alvarium is a very exciting project that Dell and us, and now also Intel and other companies are getting behind to provide this confidence score to data. And the goal here is to not just provide this in a cloud environment, but really also focus on edge, right? Meaning the Internet of Things. And a very good explanation was provided by Christoph. For those of you that don't know Christoph, he's VP of Innovation at Software AG. So Software AG is also, and Christoph are very cool people that we work with. And Christoph is also leading the Tangle EE working group together with us. And so he really understands cloud, he really understands edge computing, and he also really understands IOTA. And this is exactly like a perfect illustration of how Project Alvarium works, right? The data moves across the entire value chain between the different points, and we are able to give it a trust score. And this is exactly where IOTA makes a ton of sense, right? Because what IOTA excels at is micropayments, and is also data. That has always been sort of the main assumption of IOTA, that we want to be the protocol of value exchange. And value in this new economy that we're building also includes data, right? You want to be able to monetize your data. You want to be able to utilize your data in your smart contract, in your autonomous vehicle, and so on, right? And IOTA as the protocol for the machine economy needs to enable both. And that's why we are very excited about Project Alvarium and how it's progressing. I think one of the most interesting and one of the most exciting parts about Project Alvarium is that we got these big partners on board, and also to see the excitement from the ecosystem, right? There was like over 1,000 people, like including people from big companies, that were participating in the live stream, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of valuable collaborations that will come out of that. And it was also funny to see how the community actually participated, because I think there was only like a limited number of seats for the live stream. And so the community actually set up some Discord, screen sharing sessions, where also like I think close to 100 people just participated remotely by setting up these live streams. And I think there's a lot of excitement about Project Alvarium. There's a lot of excitement about these new use cases that we're enabling and how we're moving forward. I think the main story here is IOTA has matured a lot over the last few years, right? And IOTA really has matured to a stage where we as an organization are confident in building stuff on top, and where also the ecosystem around IOTA is confident in building on top. And I think that's really the main story here, because you don't see these big companies jumping on unproven tech, right? They want to make sure that where they invest their precious time and their resources into, they're also going to get something out of it, right? And that is really something that is here to stay for the future. And so it's very exciting to see this. And as Charlie rightly put it, like this is a very special moment for us, because we're really coming from very simple beginnings with the entire project to where we are today. So that's like an amazing progression. And I think this is also like a true testament to how the entire DLT space evolved, because 2017, 2018, we would announce like a proof of concept with a big company where you develop something over a 2-3 month period, and that's it, right? And oftentimes nothing comes out of it, because that's the sacrifices of innovation, because innovation is all about figuring out what works and what doesn't, and just experimenting. And 2017, 2018 was this experimentation stage, and now we're really moving forward with real products. And that's what we always said would happen. That's what we always wanted to happen, right? Not just doing proof of concepts, not just doing showcases, but having actual products that solve real problems. And I think that's really exciting to see how far we've come, and also what's gonna come next. And as I already mentioned, Project Alvarium and also what we're doing with IOTA Streams and with Oracles is really there to position IOTA as a sort of solution provider to other distributed ledgers, because I really think that our biggest goal for this year in the broader crypto ecosystem is to build bridges and to allow other tokens, cryptocurrencies, but also really other crypto communities and ecosystems to benefit from the technologies that we provide, and also obviously benefit from the main advantages of the IOTA ledger, which is feeless micropayments, and which is also trustable data, right? And so Oracles is a perfect example here. So yeah, make sure to read up on Project Alvarium. The live stream was recorded. I think we're just processing it right now, and it should go live over the next few days. So make sure to follow us on Twitter, in case you aren't following us already, to be up to date. So moving forward, all right, so this week we had Dell, Intel, Project Alvarium. In addition to that, we also had some very exciting progress with Zebra Technologies. Just to give you some quick context, Zebra is one of the lead. Wait, maybe I can actually Google it. Zebra Technologies is actually one of the leading barcode scanners or also infrastructure providers when it comes to supply chain tracking. And they also have broader applications in healthcare, in retail. They provide all of the infrastructure that is necessary to scan, read, and provide barcodes, right? And barcodes, barcodes are like similarly to DLT, one of the profound technologies that help to improve industries, right? Because barcodes really helped us to start tracking goods along the supply chain and to start making decisions like where to route the package and so on, right? And so Zebra is one of the leading providers of barcode scanners, readers, and we've been working with them for quite some time. We have a very exciting work with them in supply chain, where when a good goes along the supply chain, you can actually put the data into the tangle, and as such, you make it immutable, and you make it verifiable, and you also make it shareable, right? Now you can share this data with third parties, and they can verify where the good was along the supply chain. For a couple of weeks now, we've been focused on doing not just supply chain work with them, but also medical work. And I'll talk about the digital health passport soon. But basically, we also had a very exciting webinar together with them, with Zebra Technologies, and together with UBirch, which is a startup in the IOTA ecosystem that sort of provided this immunity passport and also these verifiable credentials for test scores, right? If you do a COVID test, that you can put it onto the tangle, and then another third party can verify the data that it's not been altered with. And exactly this is the type of initiative that we are taking. This is like a broader strategic initiative in the IOTA Foundation right now. So the work that we're doing with Zebra is very exciting because they are solving one part of the problem, while IOTA and UBirch is solving another problem. Just to give you guys an overview of what this really means, right? So one of the biggest problems that we have right now is that everybody wants to go back to doing to the old life, right? We want to go back to the old life where we could go normally about our lives, where we could travel, where we could go to restaurants, where we could go to the office, right? All of that stuff. And we need to think about how can we actually get back. And this is exactly where technologies are here to help, because for one, we have the vaccine. We need to figure out how to distribute it as fast, as quickly as possible. But in addition to that, we also wanted to make it possible for people to identify themselves, right? Whether you've been tested, whether you've been vaccinated and stuff like that. It just really helps to get back to business, because through that, you allow people to verify a certain claim, right? And you want to make sure that if somebody says, hey, I've been tested and I was negative, you want to make sure that this data can be trusted, right? Because there's nothing worse than somebody saying they've been tested when in actuality, it was a fake test or it was like a completely fake paper, right? Because you cannot rely on that data. And this is exactly the type of problem that IOTA is perfect to solve. And in addition to that, like for example, in Israel, I think 70% of all citizens, or even more, have already been vaccinated, and everybody there got a sort of vaccination passport. And that's nothing new, right? Vaccination passports have been around for a long time. And this vaccination passport is just really there to prove to a third party, like, let's say, for example, the gym, right? To prove there that you have been actually vaccinated, right? And the problem is, like, if you build this on the wrong infrastructure, like, for example, paper-based system, there's going to be people that try to Photoshop it, that try to fake it, and to try to sell these on the black market so that you can just run with this fake certificate and to get the same level of access, right? So that's really sort of a risk exposure to the entire system now, because a person that has not been vaccinated, that has not been tested, now gets the same level of access as others that do it, that got tested and got vaccinated. And exactly this is the type of problem that IOTA is perfect to solve. And by the way, this was part of the presentation with Zebra. And we'll publish all of that very soon as well. But this is exactly what IOTA and the IOTA identity is for, these verifiable credentials. And now there's two important points here, right? The first point is privacy. As a European-based project based out of Germany, GDPR compliance is the most important thing that we do, right? That we abide to, because everything that we do, we have to make sure that the digital and the like every rights of every citizen are really protected, because we don't want this to be misused in any in any sort of way, right? We really want to make sure that everybody's privacy and also their identity are protected. And this is where you can use some exciting cryptography. And this is also where you can use verifiable credentials, where you basically have a sort of statement that says, hey, I've been tested. And you have, like, for example, a government agency, a testing facility that attests to your credential, right? So now you have this cryptographic proof where a trusted entity, which is the government, which is the testing facility, basically proves that you have been tested, right? And this is such a powerful and also rather simple concept. It can really help solve some of these problems around trust with data and around trust with having these vaccination passports. And as I already mentioned, Zebra solves another problem, which is these physical identifiers, where you really want to make sure that the way that these certificates are issued and also how they're scanned, that is all end-to-end verifiable, and obviously also that is highly secure. And here's just another example on data privacy. So just to give you guys some insights into where we stand at IOTA, right? We've been working on identity, I think more seriously for a better half of the last year. And we have a product that's out there that's called IOTA Self. And our focus right now within the foundation is to, first of all, really make sure that the identity framework that we've developed is getting ready to a stage where it can be published, where it can be tested out by others. So the beta version of IOTA Identity will be ready over the next couple of weeks. And in addition to that, what we're doing right now is we are speaking with a lot of partners and also potential partners that are either testing facilities, that are either airlines, potential adopters, like, for example, entertainment companies that really want to go back to doing business as close as possible to the normal environment, right, to the previous environment. And we as the nonprofit IOTA Foundation, we really see ourselves in making sure that we get the right partners on board to get this adopted. And our main attention here is really to solve a big problem. And the big problem is, how do you verify that you have been tested, that you have been vaccinated? How does a third party now verify that they can trust the data that they get, that they can trust the results, that they can trust the credentials? And trust is everything that we are out there to do, right? To provide trust in data, in transactions. And this is exactly why we are very, very excited about this project. And I can encourage you to go to self.iota.org. I think the demo should still work. But you can definitely expect a lot more work from us in this realm over the next couple of weeks, because, for example, the European Union is already talking about the digital health passport and vaccination passport as well. And so right now we are really reshifting all of our focus to make sure that we are on top of this. And maybe we should actually, I don't think we've published this presentation yet because it looks really amazing. But we should really publish this presentation so that all of you can also better understand what we are out there to solve, right? And also how IOTA is being utilized here. So here you can see, for example, how this architecture looks like, right? So IOTA Identity is a framework that sits on top of IOTA, on top of the base ledger. And the issuer is issuing this certificate that then gets stored in the Tangle through the identity framework, and these certificates can actually be verified through cryptography by Zebra and also by the Self phone app. And this is how UBirch works. UBirch, for those of you that don't know them, they're also a very exciting tech company from Berlin. And we are working much more closely with them also to make sure that they are one of our preferred tech partners, because we as IOTA Foundation, we cannot do everything alone. And they are basically utilizing IOTA to anchor the test results. And also, I think they like the next stage is really to focus on how they can also utilize our identity framework. And I think, like this is a perfect example why distributed ledgers are the perfect solution for such problems. Because last time we spoke about the cloud, right? How there's these different IoT clouds today where large companies try to get everybody to adopt a certain provider. I'm not going to speak names here, but the big problem is now we have all these different walled gardens, right? Where there's no interoperability for the data that is being stored. So if you want to switch from one provider to the next, it kind of becomes incredibly difficult to move there. And the only way that we build the most robust, the most resilient, and also the most intelligent system is where we have this interoperability of data. And now the same is true to these vaccination passports or to these health passports, where we want to make sure that they are not stored in some centralized system, because now you have, again, the walled garden, where my data is being stored in a centralized database that I don't have access to, where I have no control. And worse, where it becomes incredibly difficult for me to actually share this data with other providers. And what could lead to an even worse outcome is if there's not just one provider, but there's multiple providers. And then it becomes incredibly difficult to exchange this data between the different providers to actually build an integration point, right? Into the hospital, into the doctor's CRM, whatever, right? And this is exactly where IOTA and IOTA Identity fits in, because we are focused on being this foundational layer where you can build new front ends on top, right? IOTA Self might just be one front end example, but there can be others. As long as we rely on one common backbone to store this data, to store the identities, and to store the credentials, it becomes incredibly easy to start sharing this data with others. And more importantly, we can verify it, right? And we have control over it. And this is exactly what IOTA is there to do, right? We want to give you control over your assets, whether it's IOTA tokens, whether it's digital assets, or whether it's your data and your identity. And like, just to repeat it again, right? So for us, it's very important that we push forward this health passport, because for one, it solves a real problem. And for another, we really need to make sure that we as a technology, we as an open source protocol, and get our products adopted. And IOTA Identity is one of the most exciting products that we have in the IOTA Foundation. So yeah, this is very exciting. I'll see if we can share this presentation as well. Maybe we do like a blog post on Monday. And other than that, you can expect a lot more from us, from UBirch, from Zebra, and also from some other partners that we've been working with, so that you can also understand how we at IOTA are trying to really solve such a fundamental problem. So the next discussion is Pollen. And maybe I should actually pull up the Cordicide. Exactly. So as all of you know, we have this huge upgrade coming out, which is Cordicide. We've completely rewritten the node software. We've completely rewritten the libraries, the wallet. We are introducing some exciting new paradigms, reusable addresses, UTXO, and we go beyond that, right? We go beyond that with digital assets, with smart contracts. The major thing that is missing of the Cordicide is to remove the coordinator, right? Because with that, we want to really position IOTA as the most decentralized and also as one of the most secure distributed ledger technologies, right? We came into this space saying that DAGs are the future, directed acyclic graphs. And we're now really at this very exciting stage where IOTA is evolving into this beautiful, beautiful technology that solves real problems, right? And we are now really just like getting close to the finish line with really fully decentralizing IOTA and removing the coordinator. When we announced the Cordicide, I would say alpha release, or the alpha network, we defined 3 different stages that Cordicide has to go through. Because fundamentally, it's like Chrysalis is a completely new protocol, but the consensus stays the same, right? It's still you validating 2 to 8 transactions in the history. It's still a coordinator, and it's still based on the same sort of paradigms as pre-Chrysalis, right? But now Cordicide is a completely new consensus protocol because we have mana there, we have a rate control system. We no longer have the coordinator, right? So it's a very different network, and is a completely new consensus algorithm with FPC and untangled voting and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to Cordicide, obviously it is a research project. It began as a research project and is slowly transitioning towards being a fully specified engineering project. And this progression started with the Pollen network. Pollen basically was this first testnet where we were starting out with the bare bones skeleton of Cordicide, where we were still utilizing different principles, where all of the components of Cordicide were not implemented yet, and where the community could basically participate and send around the transactions, right? And now we're really nearing the end of Pollen. Also, it's quite interesting that it's like together with Spring coming up. And this 0.4 release is basically one of the last steps before we have mana implemented. But just to quickly go back to the stages, right? We started out with Pollen. The next stage is Nectar, and the way that I would define Nectar is that all of the components of Cordicide have been integrated and are ready to be tested in a sort of incentivized testnet. Right, so that means that we are really confident in what we've built. We're really confident that it will work, and we are now also giving out rewards for people to test it out together with us, right? And Nectar is on schedule to go out over the next few weeks, months. Right, I would say months. But Nectar is really a very exciting stage because now we're no longer just doing this like bare bones, minimal test environment. Now we're really evolving into this incentivized testnet. And we have some ideas on how to make this incentivized testnet rather much more exciting, which we'll share with you very soon. But all of that goes up with the intention of Honey. And Honey for us is this final release candidate of Cordicide, right? This is where the Cordicide as an event will actually be happening on the IOTA mainnet, because we have to go. We really have to make sure that that Cordicide itself is battle tested, that our software has proven itself, that we've minimized the amount of bugs, and that we are fully confident that Cordicide can happen on the IOTA mainnet. And this is exactly where the Honey release comes into play, right? We're still in Pollen right now, but the goal is that we go through these stages this year, right? And make sure that Cordicide is accepted, not just by us, not just by the universities and research partners that we're working with, but it's also accepted by the broader community. And I think so far there's been no criticism on it, and obviously Cordicide includes a lot of peer-reviewed research papers and peer-reviewed, or like let's rather say, highly accredited researchers and universities that have worked together with us to enable Cordicide. So that's why every time we have a new Pollen release, it gets very exciting because it just gets us this one step closer to the actual release. And in this 0.4 release, I think we're sort of I think we're really in one of the last stages before Mana hits the Pollen network. And for those of you that don't know Mana is basically part of this reputation system in Cordicide that is part of the rate control system of the protocol that basically helps to make sure that the bandwidth or the transaction throughput limit that we have in the network gets distributed fairly, and it gets also distributed to those that need it the most in that regard, right? We're going to explain Mana in a lot more greater details, but we're really getting close to having a release of the Cordicide software GoShimmer with Mana implemented. And with Mana, we can do some very, very exciting tests with the community where you can really start to engage much more closely on what this new future of IOTA looks like. So interesting enough, right? So we at the IOTA Foundation, we're actually building 2 IOTAs at the same time, right? Complete new node software for Chrysalis going live now in March. And at the same time, we're also building further than that, right? Where we are building this Cordicide implementation in GoShimmer, where we also have a completely new node software. Right now it's written in Go, right? GoShimmer. But now with Chrysalis nearing an end, i.e. it's going live on the mainnet, all of our focus will also move towards Cordicide. So I think that will be very exciting, and the project, which is being led by Angelo, by Wolfgang, by Hans, and so on, is really exciting because this is really what the future of IOTA will look like. And even though the focus right now should be on Chrysalis and educating all of you on what that enables with IOTA, I think we can already now start thinking about what this future of IOTA looks like. So yeah, we have a very exciting roadmap ahead of us. I think one of the last points, or like one of the last discussions I wanted to have here is around this point, right? So we just spoke about the adoption cases of IOTA. We just spoke about Chrysalis happening, and we also just spoke about the progress that we're making on Cordicide. So that leads us to questions like, what is IOTA evolving into? And I know, like I've been discussing this with Dan over the last few days, and so he has a very exciting blog post coming out, I think over the weekend or maybe on Monday, which basically talks about these phase transitions, right? So every new technology, every new asset has to go through certain phases. And the grand vision of IOTA has always stayed the same, right? It's always been about the machine economy. It's always been about empowering the Internet of Things, and it's always been about enabling data transfers, data security, and about feeless micropayments, right? So the vision of IOTA is still the same. And the bigger question is really, how has the technology evolved? Because that technology, or the technologies that we are creating, are really the enablers of this vision. And you can have the best vision in life, but if you're not delivering on the fundamental building blocks, which is the tech, it's just going to stay a vision, right? You're never going to get it adopted. And this is really where IOTA has evolved quite significantly since its inception. And where, right, I've always said that every DLT out there today is a proof of concept. Bitcoin, Ethereum, IOTA, everything is a proof of concept. We still have to actually go towards mass adoption before we can really say these technologies, like these technologies, have kind of proven themselves, right? So with IOTA, we are really getting close towards this production readiness of the protocol because for one, we have very exciting use cases happening on top of the Tangle, and for another, we also have our tech that with Chrysalis, with Cordicide, is really moving towards a stage where you can build amazing stuff on top, right? And the amazing stuff that we are already building on top are digital assets and are also smart contracts. And so you kind of start to ask yourself, what is the main purpose of the IOTA token? And we're going to have a lot more discussions around this, but fundamentally it's still the same, right? It's always been about the machine economy, because the machine economy is everything. And IoT, the definition of IoT is this ubiquitous computing platform, right? We want to have every device should be smart, every device should be connected, and it should be able to transact with each other. And it's exactly what the mission and vision of IOTA is, to be one of the building blocks of this machine economy, or the enabler of this machine economy. And so the IOTA token, especially with Mana, is really becoming this digital infrastructure layer. It becomes this physical layer, similarly to the spectrum, where the spectrum provides connectivity. And now IOTA is this digital infrastructure that provides you with transaction throughput, that provides you with data security, and that provides you with this trust protocol that you can really build and empower new use cases with, right? So smart contracts, automation of business processes, digital identity, and micropayments, all of that is part of this package that is offered by IOTA. And so I think we as a protocol, we as a project, are also evolving from being like sort of this speculative asset, as all other cryptocurrencies, towards a real technology that solves real problems and is really being adopted, right? And that's always been the mission and the vision of IOTA. We always wanted to cross the chasm, and we always wanted to make sure that our technologies actually solve problems, because else the worst that could happen is just that these crypto assets are just being traded for fun or just being traded for profit, right? Even though everybody knows kind of the potential or can think about the potential, it's about actually realizing this potential. Because when this entire crypto space really started to boom, everybody had sort of a vision of how we're going to decentralize society, how we're going to decentralize industries. And I think like 2017, 2018, we kind of lost touch with reality, like us collectively, right? This entire crypto space. And now it's about really going back on our feet and focusing on building. Because only if we build towards the future, we can actually make sure that we solve problems, right? And even though we don't always have the necessary information when we make these decisions, I think we as an ecosystem, we as the IOTA Foundation, and we as the entire crypto space should really just focus on building right now. And no matter what's going to happen, right, as long as we are directionally right, and the sort of direction that we at IOTA are taking are the machine economy, are the empowering the Internet of Things with our technology. I think as long as we really stay focused on building, and as long as we really stay focused or like stay humble on our journey, I'm very certain that we're going to be successful, and that IOTA will evolve from just being this very niche, or like not niche, but this very interesting crypto asset towards being a real tech, right? And that is really where the biggest potential of IOTA lies. And this is really where IOTA will evolve into this $1 trillion economy that I've always spoke about on Slack, right? Because for me, it was always about either we're going to be $1 trillion ecosystem or nothing. And we're kind of proving now where we are heading towards. There's still a lot more work ahead of us, but that's what makes this journey so exciting, right? To actually build towards it. And I think just to shortly answer your question, yeah, like absolutely, IOTA is going to become a global currency, right? That has always been the goal. It's always been the goal to go away from speculation towards solving real world problems. And the real world problem, the most basic one that we solve, are how can one machine pay another machine without having to trust a centralized party, without having to trust a financial service provider, by really being able to pay machine to machine, right? That has been the fundamental value proposition of IOTA, and that is exactly what we are enabling. And once we solve that problem, we're going to have a huge ecosystem on top of IOTA. And I really think that IOTA is evolving into becoming this machine economy. And that is why it makes a lot of sense for us right now to start building bridges towards other communities so that they can be part of this exciting journey that we are building and that we set ourselves out to. So yeah, I think that should give you guys a sort of high level thinking of where we stand and where we are heading. Maybe some closing remarks. We'll think about what we can publish for the Zebra and the Hubert webinar that we did last week. And without further ado, I think you should all be getting very excited because it is 26th of February. March starts on Monday. So we have 1 month of lots of updates, of lots of upgrades. And I'm sure that with the Firefly release, the alpha version of it or the beta version of it, all of you can really be excited about what's going to be enabled by IOTA, right? And I'm absolutely excited for what is to come. And the journey doesn't end there, right? We have a really exciting journey ahead of us. And the project Alvarium is really sort of a testament to the work that we've done over the last few years and not losing sight and really staying focused on building. And so I think that's really the main conclusion I can give all of you, that we are really focused on building, and we are building and enabling the future right now. So with that, I hope that all of you have a great Friday evening. Get some popcorn, watch a movie, enjoy your time. I hope that I get a haircut next week. It's been since, I think, like probably October now. So it's kind of getting annoying, but it's still fun, right? So see you guys next time. Bye-bye.